and under scripts it says load files into a stack. And what this will allow me to do is take a bunch of photos and have each one on its own layer. It saves a bunch of time, okay? So I go to File, Scripts, Load Files into Stack. You see that? Now, just so we're clear, like, and that you understand that this is also already in the PowerPoint here. If I go to the PowerPoint, you see how it says in Photoshop, go to File, Scripts, Load Files into Stack. Load Files in Stack. That's what you do. Okay, so it's the same. It's in here in case you forget, but that's where it's at. So I'm going to go to File, Scripts, Load Files into a Stack. I'm going to hit that, and then it brings up this box and it's asking me what layers I want to load. So I'm going to find my photos that are part of my panoramic by clicking Browse. And then I'm going to go, okay, this was the first one I took, and then I took this one. Let me make this bigger so you guys can see it. I took this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one, and I scooted the camera across, making sure I overlapped all the way to there. Okay? So I'm going to go from this photo, which is, for me, it's 1213, all the way to 1205. So I'm going to hold Shift on the keyboard and select all of those so that they're all highlighted. Okay, you guys know how to select multiple files. I just want to make sure I select all of them in one go, and then I click Open. If they're all right here, so then I click OK, and I'm going to let Photoshop do the work. Now what it's doing is it's opening each image, and it's loading it up into its own layer into Photoshop. So now it's done. So if you look over here in my layers, I have a stack of photos, and it's all my photos that we took for the panoramic. Okay? That saves a bunch of time. You used to not be able to do that. Okay? You used to have to open each one up, copy it, put it on a layer, and like this saves you a bunch of time. So I let Photoshop do all that work for me. The next thing that I'm going to do is I need to make sure that I highlight all the layers. Okay, so I need all these layers selected. So I'm going to hold Shift on the keyboard, and I'm going to click the bottom layer so that, because the top one was already selected. So they're all selected. You see that? This is a key thing, because what's going to happen next, if I don't have them all selected, it's not going to let me do the next step. Okay, so I want to make sure I do this. But what will happen, I'm sure, someone will forget this and they'll say, oh, mister, come over, it's not letting me do it. And I'll say, do you have all the layers highlighted? Okay, but this is the key thing. You have to have all the layers selected or highlighted. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to go to Edit, and then Auto Align Layers. And this is going to auto align all those layers that I have selected over here in the layer palette over here, okay? You guys ready? Watch this happen. It's going to say what way do we want it to do it. I'm just going to have it on auto, and then I'm going to say OK. And now it's going to do all the work for me, and it's going to piece up everything and align it the best it can. It's going to warp the photos. It's going to do a bunch of stuff to line everything up. Depending on how many photos you take and how many megapixels each photo is, this will take longer. But you can see it's moving pretty quick. That's one of those things where these are pretty powerful computers. So what it did there, and I'll zoom back a little bit, it's lined up all these photos. And see, you can see it got rid of the warp in my lens, like it curved the photo so that it lines up, this tree lines up in the next shot. It did it for all the photos, all the way across. Now I tried my best to stay as horizontal as I could, but you can see even I went up and then down a little bit. You see that? If I went perfectly straight across, then it would be straight across. It wouldn't have gone up a little bit. But that's marginal. What you'll see sometimes, you accidentally like, oh, bird or the tree or whatever, and you point your camera up way too high, and then it'll be this weird blob of a panoramic. But this isn't too bad, okay? So it looks really good. It goes all the way across. The only problem is you see that I can see the edge of each photo. You see that? They don't blend together. They kind of stop and start and whatever. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go to Edit, and I want to go to Auto Blend Layers. It's right under Align. So the first thing we do is line them all up. The next thing we do is let Photoshop blend them all together. It recognizes that it's a panorama photo, So I say, okay, yeah. And then it's going to go ahead and start to blend these photos together. Now, it does it in a very complicated way in that it sets up kind of like a layer mask on each layer and like picks pixels to like really kind of make it as seamless as possible. But that, it saves you a bunch of work than having to like blur it out with the eraser or soft eraser or whatever. But it does take a little bit of time, but it saves you a ton of time. Okay, there it is. So it's pretty blended all the way across. You see how I can't really see right there? That was just because it was loading up the preview still. So from one photo to the next, it looks really smooth all the way across the whole thing. If I get rid of a section, like this section, you can see where it blended it together. You see that? That's how complicated this is, but that's what it did. Okay, so it blended it all together for me. And what I'm going to do now is, it's good to go. I'm going to go to Layer. I'm going to flatten this image so that it's one solid picture. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'll go to, like let's say the crop tool, and I'm going to crop it so that I don't have, well, let me get rid of this ratio here. I'm going to crop it so I don't have any of these white bars at the bottom or the top. Now, what you'll notice here is when I'm doing this, now there is a way to let Photoshop do some of this, but I'll do it for us right now. But I'm going to pull this down a little bit. That looks pretty good. I'm going to pull this up a little bit. If you start to lose some stuff that's really important, like let's say I really don't want to crop too low down here, or I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose part of this tree that I want to keep, or I don't want to come up too high right here, or I'm going to lose this. You can warp the photo as well. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to crop that there so you can see I'm really close, right? Except I have a little bit of white right here and a little bit of white over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to warp this photo. So I'm going to duplicate it, and I go to Edit, Transform, and then Warp. And Warp allows me to kind of bend and move the photo around. So all I want to do really is just pick it up a little bit so that it doesn't show that white spot over there. And then I'm going to pull this down a little bit so that it doesn't show the sort of white parts right there. I'm just warping it a little bit so that it fits in there. It's a big file, that's why it's taking a while, but now it looks pretty good. All the way across, really seamless. Some things that you can do now are just do your regular image adjustments, like let's say we do shadows and highlights. We do brightness and contrast. This is all stuff that you guys should be, like you'll have your own go-tos, but like let's say I do some of these and I make the photo look a little bit better. So now I can really see like the bright color of the building and the sky or whatever. Now, why? Because that, even though Photoshop did a lot of the work, why is this better than even just going like this with my phone? Is because this is a bigger file and you can see more information in here. So if I were to do this with my phone, it basically it doesn't take as big of a photo per each photo. But if we start to zoom in here, we can see, like the signs on this building. We can see whether or not this thing was open a little bit before class started, and it was. So we can see all types of stuff going on here, okay? But if we took it with our phone, we wouldn't be able to see all this stuff. Okay, look at that person. I didn't know there's people way over there. Okay, we can see these people in this photo because it's a giant file. Okay, it's a big, giant file. Okay? That's how you do the panoramic. I'm not going to save this. I'm going to do it super fast again right now. Okay? I go to File, Scripts, Load Files into a Stack. I find the photos. I select them all. I say Open. Okay. It loads them all up for me. I go to Edit, Auto Align. Oh no, wait, it won't let me do it. It's grayed out. Why won't it let me do it? Does anyone remember?
To select the photos.
I don't have all the layers selected. So I gotta select all these layers first. Edit, Auto Align Layers. Click OK. Let it do its thing. It takes a little bit of time. Then I go to edit, auto blend layers. Now there's a thing, this is what I want, this is why I'm doing it again real quick. There's this thing called content aware fill, and what it's gonna do is gonna fill in all the transparent areas. So I'm just gonna click that and say okay and let it do its thing, and you'll see that it'll get rid of those white areas for me on its own. It takes a little bit longer, it's not always perfect, but it's good to test out. So we're just waiting for the computer to process right now. It's still working because now it's going to fill in the transparent areas. So we'll see how well it does. Hopefully. There we go. See how right there it filled in grass? There was no grass there, it put in some grass. Up here where there was no sky, it put in sky. Now you can do that, like you can use that. Oh, oops. But you might want to still crop it because see what it did over here? Look how crazy that looks right there. Okay, so that's where warp or the crop tool is going to come in handy. And then I would just crop this up.
So you would you keep the content aware option or undo it and try it again?
I think I would keep it because a lot of it looks good, but I would probably just bring this up here
And you crop.
and then crop it there.
Does it crop the whole bottom of the corner?
I cropped it over here, yeah. So maybe instead of doing that, like let's step back from there. This is where you're gonna decide what you want to do. Like I might go to, I could go to this corner and go edit, transform, and warp, and I could like pull this corner up a little bit since I know I'm gonna crop it up, and maybe I can pull this corner down a little bit, and then I'll do crop. I'll pull this up. Now we don't lose as much of that corner because I pulled it up a little bit, and we don't, gain as much because we pulled this down. So we're kind of trying to find a happy medium there. That's like the goal. But that's that. Okay, that's Panoramic. The key thing is taking cool photos in a row. Then we let Photoshop do a lot of work. You just got to remember the steps. Once again, all those steps, they're right here in the PowerPoint. Scripts, load files into a stack, hit OK, select the layers, edit auto align, edit auto blend, crop as needed, save it as a JPEG.
And this is posted already, right?
Yeah, this is up there. Okay, so the next one on our list is HDR.